John played an important role in our community, and he'll certainly be missed. I had a discussion today with Professor Jefferson, and she's doing a lot of work up on Garvin Heights, the land that I think Bill Schuler donated to Winona State, and they're cleaning that area up, and she's been spending a lot of time up there. And she's got a request of the council to have staff look into the possibility of some kind of a closure on the lookout after a certain period at night, because there's a lot of vandalism that's going on up there, graffiti and all that kind of thing. And I don't know what you all will decide to do, but if there's some way that, and the neighbors up there are also for this, from what she says, and if there's a way that we could kind of close the look-off area for cars, like say maybe after 10 o'clock in the summertime, or I don't know what the hour would be, and then have it open up early. I know it's not going to stop some of the stuff that goes on up there, because people can get around fences and over and under and all that, but it might be somewhat of a deterrent and something that we should maybe look into. So I said that I would bring it up tonight. So that's something we can look at. And Mr. Peterson is here from Tim Flaherty's office and is going to give us a little update on what is going on with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. I will do that.
Thank you, Mayor Miller and members of the council. My name is Bradley Peterson, and as the mayor stated, I am with the firm of Flaherty and Hood in St. Paul, and we do the legislative advocacy and organizational management work for the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, of which Winona has been a long time member. Just to refresh your memory, the coalition has approximately 78 cities, everything I like to say from Grand Marais, which is about 1,400 people, all the way up to Rochester, which is, of course, almost 110,000, and just about everything in between. The coalition works in 5 main areas: local government aid, property taxes, economic development, annexation and land use, environmental regulation, and transportation. And every summer after the legislative session, we try to get around and meet with all of our cities if we can, or certainly most of them, to give you an update on what transpired this last legislative session, what we think the next year looks like, and give you an opportunity to ask whatever questions you have about our work at the legislature. And so I am going to hit the highlights of a couple of things related to local government aid and property taxes and economic development and annexation. There's a lot more work that we did, though, over the course of the year, and that is all written up in the narrative here that I passed out. And as I'm going along, please feel free to jump in and ask questions if you have them. This is your opportunity to ask what the coalition is doing on your behalf. I'll start with local government aid, though, and really start with the fallout from the 2011 legislative session and the special session that ended it. Of course, with that budget for the 12 and 13 biennium that was done in July of 2011, we had the elimination of the homestead market value credit and the creation of a new market value exclusion, and this created, I think, a lot of concern and chaos within the property tax system. You had a lot of shifting around of value as a certain portion of a homeowner's value was excluded, and it got shifted onto commercial and industrial property and apartment owners and other types of property, or if you didn't have enough of that kind of property in your city, it kind of boomeranged back on the homeowner. And so there was a lot of upset early this year in terms of what it meant for property taxes. The first piece in your packet, top graph there, shows the actual property taxes increase across a number of different categories. Overall, in Greater Minnesota, we saw a 6.6% increase compared to 2.6% in the metro. The red represents Greater Minnesota, the blue, the metro area. And you can see for every category of property, the increases in Greater Minnesota were greater than they were for the metro area. So whether it's residential, homestead, apartments, or high and low value CI property. The bottom graph there is just sort of a look at LGA payment history over time, starting in 2002, which is really sort of when the most recent phase of significant cuts started, and that dotted line represents inflation. So had we been keeping up with inflation on the local government aid side, we'd be at about $817 million a year. As it is, we've been frozen since 2002 at about $425 million a year, and that's going to actually be carrying on into 2013 as well. If you flip it over, you can see some Winona-specific information. And the context for this is it really wasn't going to be a big year for discussion about local government aid, right? That was all last year. But as estimates for a city's amounts for 2013 came out, what we discovered was that there was quite a bit of upset because the formula, the LGA formula, was going to kick back on again. We haven't had a formula that's really been working since 2009 when we did the first rounds of unallotments under the Plenty administration. So cities have been essentially frozen at their levels going forward, 2010, 2011, 2012. Formula would start in 2013. But what that meant for many of our cities and regional centers, especially like Winona, was because of the way that the cuts had been done, because of all the up and down in the formula, because it was a formula built for an extra $100 million worth of money in it, there were really some significant impacts. And what we were seeing in most of our larger regional centers was that they would be losing a significant amount of money from 2012 to 2013. So in the case of Winona, this was about $276,000 less that you would have gotten in 2013 than what you were getting in 2012. You can see the top there looks at sort of what would happen under a number of different scenarios. LGA 2012 on the far left, 2013 formula, had it simply been allowed to run. The CGMC proposal, so what we did was we looked at, okay, what we should do to just get us into 2013, where we expect there's going to be some significant actual work done on the legislative formula, is give everybody a 5% increase or their 2013 amount, whichever was higher. And so under that scenario, Winona would have gotten about $9.6 million in 2013. The final tax bill, what they did was they froze 2013 amounts at the 2012 amounts. And so rather than losing that $276,000, you'll be getting what you got in 2012 in 2013. What they did for cities under 5,000 was they did do that bump up where they gave them either the higher of your 2012 amount or your 2013 amount, which was ever higher, and that cost the state less than $2 million. Had you frozen everybody and given them the higher of their 2012 versus their 2013, that would have been about $12 million extra out of state coffers. Had you gone with our proposal and given everybody a 5% increase or their 2013 amount, whichever was greater, that would have been about $31 million. So the legislature opted for the least cost alternative, but nonetheless it was advantageous for most of our cities in that it held you at the level you were at. And I think it's actually kind of important to go into 2013 at a stable level. We do anticipate that for a number of reasons, there will be some significant work done on the local government aid formula. First off, it has been over 10 years since the formula was redone. You recall the last major overhaul of the formula was done in the early Plenty administration. That's where they came up with all the need factors like pre-1940 housing and car accidents and correlated those things to what a city needed. We now have a whole new set of demographic information with the 2010 census to work with. So that's one. Two, there have been a number of efforts both at the legislative level and initiated by the governor to create study groups around the local government aid formula, and the CGMC is well represented on both of those groups. The governor's group is a group of mayors, and we have 5 or 6 of our CGMC mayors who are represented on that group, in addition to the mayors of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, and St. Cloud. And then on the legislative group, we have our policy analyst, Steve Peterson, who's really the smart guy on these issues in our office, who knows it upside, inside, right side, left side, and out and backwards and forwards. He's representing CGMC on that group that involves a number of local elected officials as well as a number of legislators and then representatives of groups like ours. So that's how things played out local government aid-wise here during the 2012 session. The bottom graph is just for your sort of information, because we were sort of wondering for our cities, looking at your recent loss of state aid compared to what cities were levying back. So on the far left there, the $3.4 million is what you lost in local government aid 2008 to 2011. The next middle column there is if you added the market value credit to that. And then the right is actually in response what the city's increase or decrease in the levy has been. And so you can see, even though you've lost $4.5 million in LGA and market value credit combined over that time period, the city's only raised their levy by a cumulative $194,000. Which is on the low end of what a lot of our cities have done. A lot of our cities have been to a third or a half of that levy back. And so you all have been fairly conservative in terms of your response, at least on the property tax levy side of this. So we thought you'd be interested just in seeing that piece. As I mentioned, 2013 is going to be a big year, not only because it's a budget year, and we've got a number of different initiatives to relook at the local government aid formula, but because it is a budget year, we will also be looking at a projected state budget deficit, which is this graph here. And these are numbers that come from Minnesota Management and Budget, the state agency that estimates these things. And so just the forecast amount deficit is about $1.1 billion for the 2014-2015 budget year, or budget biennium. If you add inflation to that, you're looking at 2.16. And if you add paying back the schools, because remember, as part of the 2011 session, we borrowed a whole bunch of money from the schools to kind of paper over the deficit that we had at that time, you're looking at just over $4.5 billion. Now, nobody's really talking about paying back the schools. It has been being paid back actually on an automatic basis as revenue forecasts this last couple of months have come in ahead. And so they've refilled the reserves, they've refilled the state's cash flow account, and now extra from that is going into slowly pay down the schools. But that's the landscape going into the next legislative session in terms of the state budget as it stands now. The other major priority focus of the CGMC for this year was on economic development. Last summer and last fall at the CGMC conferences, we spoke a lot with our members, and there was a pretty strong consensus that we needed to do something to look at job creation and retention in greater Minnesota. And so J.D. Burton in our office was tasked with doing that research and coming up with some proposals. And so we engaged our cities, local EDAs, local chambers of commerce, individual businesses, pretty much whoever's smart that we could get together to figure out what would be additional tools that the state could grant to local communities or to investors or to businesses to help spur job growth, specifically in greater Minnesota, since that's our focus, obviously. We created a task force, and they came up with 5 initiatives. The first one is a Greater Minnesota internship program that would have paid a part of an internship cost for a company to a company in greater Minnesota that hired college interns. We also proposed enhancement of the angel investment tax credit. This is a tax credit that was passed in 2010 that incentivizes investments in startup business and innovative businesses and technology businesses around the state. But what we find is, of all the investments that are happening with this money that's coming out of the state general fund, only 13% of those investments were happening in greater Minnesota. And so we put together a proposal that would basically enhance the tax credit for investments made in greater Minnesota. So rather than the normal 25% tax credit that was being granted, if you made an investment in greater Minnesota, you'd get a 40% tax credit. We also worked on a pretty significant increase to the funding of the Greater Minnesota Business Development Infrastructure Grant Program. This is a grant program that was actually started by the coalition in the early 2000s to help communities as they're doing business development, as they're creating industrial parks and the like, to help pay the cost of infrastructure. It pays half the cost of the infrastructure from the state. It's funded through the state's bonding, or the legislature's bonding bill every year. We also had an interchange program that would fund interchanges related to economic development, and then finally a new jobs training program. Of that menu of items, there were 2 that really got traction in addition to the infrastructure grant program. The first was the internship program. That was included in the tax bill that was sent to the governor, as was the enhancement on the angel investment credit. So those two pieces we were able to forward on a bipartisan basis. Unfortunately, it landed in the tax bill that got vetoed by the governor for other reasons. So we, like a lot of other, I think, very good projects and a lot of local initiatives, were sort of collateral damage to other issues. But I think what this effort did was actually allowed us to engage the legislature on a very proactive level on something that they are obviously very interested in terms of job creation. Locally here, Senator Miller carried our internship tax program, and we're very appreciative of that. And we got a lot of very good bipartisan support for all of these initiatives. Now, unfortunately, none of them came to pass this year, but we're going to be continuing to build on the research, the education, the success that we had this year to hopefully bring some of those to fruition in the coming years. The next handout here is just something that we put out to the legislature towards the end of session, highlighting our priorities for the tax bill. It talks about the local government aid piece and then also the priorities for economic development. The next couple of things I'm just going to go over very briefly, but if you have other questions, you can certainly ask me. There were a couple of proposals at the legislature around budget and tax constitutional amendments that would have limited the legislature's ability to tax, or at least would have increased the threshold in terms of the amount of legislators you would have needed to vote for a tax increase, as well as some other budget and tax constitutional amendments. Historically, no matter what party proposes them, and no matter what they're for, the CGMC has generally been against doing any kind of budgeting through the state constitution. We think it's the legislature's job. That's what they get sent to St. Paul to do. And we also, because of the demographics of our state changing so much, tilting in favor of the metro area, we're really concerned about the long-term consequences of having such things on the ballot. None of those proposed amendments came to pass. They were not put on the ballot, but we were able to, again, engage a lot of legislators in those discussions about why it was harmful for greater Minnesota, and just good government in general in the state of Minnesota. On the annexation side, we were able to prevent some pretty bad legislation that was proposed by the Minnesota Association of Townships. This legislation would have essentially given town boards veto power over annexations by ordinance. And these are the simple kind of no-brainer kind of annexations where, the property is completely surrounded by the city or the city owns the property. This legislation would have given town boards basically a say, nope, sorry, city, we're not going to let you do it. It would have also reinstated an election requirement for annexations that go to the Office of Administrative Hearings, and basically would have said that in order for an annexation to go forward, 75% of residents of a township and the city would need to approve it. That would have essentially shut down all annexations across the state. We were able to convince legislators, again, on a pretty bipartisan basis that these were bad ideas, and they were not heard in committee. So finally, we'd like to just invite you to a couple of events. Our CGMC conference is coming up in Owatonna here at the end of the month. There's an agenda and registration in your packets. This is where we hear from the legislators in more depth about what transpired this last legislative session, really unpack in a greater way for you the work that we did over the last session. We've invited the major party candidates for the U.S. Senate to come and address the group so they can meet us and we can meet them. And then, of course, this is also this conference where we have our annual legislative awards dinner, where we honor those legislators who have assisted us over the last year, and then also those CGMC members who have been particularly effective and helpful in advocacy on behalf of the organization. And then, of course, also retiring legislators and our own retiring officials who have made great contributions to the coalition. And then in November, we've got our fall conference in Alexandria, November 14th to the 16th. And this is where we will go through all of the election results. Remember, all 201 legislators are up for election in new districts as a result of redistricting. So there will be a lot to talk about after the election, and we'll do some assessment on what the balance of power means, if it's all Republicans again, or if it's all Democrats, or if we get a split decision out of the electorate. We'll try to do some analysis around what that means, and then we will set our policy agenda for the next legislative session. And so if you are really interested in the policy pieces, whether it's local government aid, annexation, economic development, that's a good spot to get involved because you can learn a lot and also have a hand in setting the organization's course for the next year. With that, thank you for having me here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Thank you, Bradley. When you went back to when the state legislature, to balance the budget, they, borrowed money from the schools, and at that time, there was also the tobacco bonds that they used. If I remember correctly, it's like 1.7 million approximately, or
Yeah, you add it all up, it's in that range. The school borrowing was just over $1 million, and then the tobacco bonds, the actual number that they filled out of the state budget was just shy of $700 million.
Right. And so how does that work then? So for information-wise, with the tobacco bonds, so the state is paying interest on that, and
Yep, the state, it's at least a 20-year deal. The state's going to be paying interest on those over the course of the year, and it's going to be quite expensive for the state to pay those back.
Thank you.
Okay, questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your meeting.
You too.
Good night.
Judy, you got anything?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, nothing tonight. Monica, call the roll.
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Councilman Thurley,
Here.
Craig,
Here.
Alexander, here, Wojciechowski,
Here.
White, here. Under the petitions, requests, and communications, item 3.1 is a request to close King Street by Winona State University for their move-in day on Tuesday, August 21st.
Move to approve that request.
Moved by, who moved? Michelle, and second by Al. Geez, they're moving in, and it seems like they just got out. Okay, questions? All in favor of the motion to approve the request by Winona State? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carried.
Item 3.2 is the reappointments to the Recreational Waterways Commission of Dale Betcher and Len Cross.
Move to confirm those appointments. Second.
Moved by Al, second by Jerry. Questions? All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the reappointments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, carried.
Item 3.3 is the sign and banner schedule for the second half of the year.
Move to approve that schedule?
Moved by Debbie. Is there a second? Second by Michelle. Questions? You got the list there. Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve the signs, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carried.
Item 3.4 is the Chatfield Street Block Party request for August 25th.
Move to approve that request.
Second.
Moved by George, second by Michelle.
No, it's-
Yep. No, okay,
Yes,
Debbie.
that's right.
Okay, any questions? I guess that's in the fourth ward. All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the Chatfield Street closure. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carried.
Item 3.5 is the request to close a portion of Buchanan Street on July 14th for Rosie's Pub birthday party.
I would move to approve that request.
I'll second.
Moved by George, second by Michelle. Questions? All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the request to close the street on Buchanan Street. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carried.
Item 3.6 is a request by the Handy Corner to close St. Charles Street on July 7th for a fundraiser. They are aware that they cannot serve alcohol on the city street or sidewalk.
I would move approval of that request.
Second.
Moved by George, second by Debbie. Questions?
No questions, but it's just it's sad to see how depressing things are in your area. That it's just they got to have some fun once in a while, Joe.
Well, they're all celebrating, so.
All right, all in favor of the request by the Handy Corner, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, carried.
Item 3.7 is a request by the Polish Cultural Institute to close Liberty Street for their festival on October 7th, and I still cannot pronounce the name of the event.
I'll
Either-
move to approve.
Either can I. So
Okay.
I'll second her motion.
Moved by Michelle, second by George. Questions? All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the request by the Polish Cultural Institute. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carried.
Item 3.8 is a request to reduce the utility bill for 472 College View Street. Is Mr. John Gelling here?
Yep, he's here. Okay, you have a request on the bill of 472 College View, and John is here. If you want to address the council, we'll listen.
Thank you, Mary. Excuse me. Just getting over a little bit of a cold, so hopefully my voice doesn't give away too much. Anyways, I want to thank you all for your time. I know you're busy and you got a lot to do, so I'm not going to take too much of your time. I just wanted to come to the council meeting tonight to explain kind of how this happened. For those of you who may not know, my bill is approximately $1,700 between water and sewer, which is a couple $100 more than I paid in taxes on this property. I purchased the property about 2.5 years ago. This did happen one other time as far as a leak goes. It's a toilet downstairs. I have an unfinished basement, so I'm rarely down in the basement other than to do laundry. Basically, what happened the first time was I had just moved in. I got my first water bill. It was my second water bill, sorry. It was about $300 and some. I actually before I got that bill, I had a gentleman from the city stop out to take a look around, to try and see, where the extra usage was coming from. At that time, he determined it was coming from a toilet in my basement that was running. When that happened, I actually had heard a noise upstairs in my house. I didn't know what it was, but it was actually the water every once in a while was stopping on the toilet and would actually really shake the plumbing down in the basement, and I could hear that. At that time, we turned the toilet off because I never used it. I didn't think twice about it again. I did not fix it. Basically what happened this time is, as you know, the bills are on a 3-month slide. I think that time it was caught sooner, or the leak had started later, one of the two. But I had guests over one evening, and one of them requested to use the bathroom because there was somebody else in the other bathroom upstairs. I said, go ahead, but make sure you pull the handle up because I knew of the last time. Didn't go and check after the person had used the bathroom. I should have. Looking back on it, that's what I would do different. I have since contacted a plumber. I'm going to get the toilet fixed so that this does not happen again. But basically, all I can figure is it had to have been running almost the full 3 months because that usage is, I don't know, 19, 20 times my normal usage. So thank you for your time, and that's about all I had.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you. All right, council, what is your pleasure? Al, it's your ward?
Yeah, well, this is, I had an opportunity, I didn't have an opportunity to talk to Mr. Gehling prior to this, although I sent him an email today, and the circumstances seem to put a lot of the responsibility on the homeowner in this case to recognize that a situation existed that was causing this, and I don't think the city should be liable for the full amount in this case. I think, though, we should be a little understanding and take part of the water part of that bill off. And I would make a motion that we reduce the bill by $400.
Could you say that again? I can't hear you.
$400.
I would make a motion we reduce the bill by $400.
Reduce it by 400.
Yes, that's my motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Orange seconds. Okay, discussion. Anyone got anything to say? Okay, all in favor of the motion, which is to reduce the water bill from $1,676.16. If we reduce it by 400, it'd be $1,276.16. Okay, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
2 opposed. Motion carries 4-2. Okay.
Item 3.9 is the Camelot Drive request by Mr. Dave Sebo.
Okay, Mr. Sebo, we had an opportunity to meet with him and city staff, and they came up with some numbers, and I I told Dave if he wished to bring it to the council, he can bring it to the council, so he's here to represent the people that live there. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor Miller and council. We have 5 residents on that Camelot Street, or I guess it's not a street, it's private drive. And what we're doing is, I had met with Keith Nelson and his group and Mayor Miller and visited with them prior to this meeting here. And I believe Keith came over or one of his engineers came over and looked at the drive, and he also called me and gave me a bid of $31.50 to patch it. And what we're interested in, being we're taxpayers and we have city water, city sewer up there, we would like some help, if at all possible, on getting some of that patchwork taken care of or paid for by the city. It just seems like we're the only ones that go up there. We had a fire up there while I was gone last winter, and fire trucks couldn't even get up there. So I just come and I'm kind of wanting to know if the council would help us out on patching Camelot Street.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? George?
Now, this Camelot, now that is a private drive, correct?
Correct. And I guess I wasn't aware that it was a private drive till about a year or two ago. And the people who owned or developed that, evidently, according to Keith, he said that they did not want a public street in there. However, if the city would like to build one, we would honor it, but I'm sure the city don't want to do that. But if we could just get them to do some patchwork.
How long have you lived there?
I've lived there 9 years.
Okay, I know I was out there this afternoon with Brian, and we looked at part of it there. I guess a question for our city attorney. If council would vote to approve maintaining or repaving this driveway, or a private drive, I'm going to use the word because that's what it is, would there be any ramifications from this, or what would happen to future, to future requests down the road from here?
Mayor and Council, Councilor Borjakowski. I think the primary issue here would be the precedent that you would set with something like this. This is not the only private drive in the city. You have townhome associations, you have people with just private driveways. Whether this is 200 feet long or 20 feet long, the issue is both really are considered private driveways. And I don't know how you would draw the distinction between this versus something else. So I think the primary legal problem would be the precedent that would be set with something like this. Unfortunately for Mr. Sebo and those folks, at the time this was developed, it was developed in a certain way. I'm sure the lots, when they were sold for those houses, factored in the road, but they didn't really look at what the long-term ramifications of that road would be. The other issues with something like this would be that you would then be putting public funding into a private drive. This particular driveway doesn't have any of the incidents that are needed related to a public road, such as getting fire vehicles into that location. There's no cul-de-sac at the end of this. To some degree, if I think the state started to put money into something like this, you'd have to seriously look at improving the road to meet city specs for a particular city street, which includes cul-de-sac and width.
Now, right off of Lake Boulevard, we were talking with Brian this afternoon, about 12 feet of that is city right-of-way, or or you measure from the city of the street about 12 feet going up, could be the city's responsibility?
If that's within the right of way, certainly.
Okay,
Okay, any other, George?
okay.
Okay, Deb?
Your Honor, I move because of,
Looks like he takes care of it.
not approve the request because of what's also contained within our packet and what also the city attorney just echoed, because it is a privately owned roadway and driveway, so I'm sorry about that. But I move to deny the request.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion by Debbie to deny the request, seconded by George. Okay, any other questions?
George has some comments.
George?
Yeah, just a comment, I would like to help you, just from what our city attorney has said, it's pretty much impossible to do that.
Yeah, I understand.
know.
My question was, being there's 5 people up there that live on that street, so to speak, I had heard rumors that possibly the city would do a little patching or do a slight amount of maintaining of that, even though it's a private driveway. But evidently, I'm wrong. Is that correct?
That'd be,
Although the city is liable for its right-of-way, for what the city owns, right?
That's where you came up with the 250, or somebody did?
No,
It's
I
that
don't
first?
know. No, it's just 12 feet on the right-of-way, I think.
Who owns that second piece of property?
That's also owned by Mr. Sebo, I believe, the first 2
I
lots.
own the empty lot, and I
Oh.
have a lot. There's actually 7 lots up there and 5 houses.
Okay, thank you.
So we're actually paying taxes. People are paying taxes on 7 lots.
Okay, anyone else? Debbie?
And just to echo again, as the city attorney alluded to, we have other, for example, properties that have private drives like that, and then Treetops, Whispering Pines, University Village, and et cetera, too. So there's others scattered throughout Winona as well, so sorry about that, but.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
any other questions? Okay, all in favor of the motion, which is to deny the request. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried.
Mayor? One lady wanted to say something back there.
Ma'am, come on up.
My name is Linda King. Hi, I live on Camelot. I guess what I'd just like to have out there for consideration, the dynamics have changed. Obviously, it's not just a private drive. The developers the Dickerson family years ago started that. So there are 5 independently owned homes there now. If in fact this is a firm decision you've made tonight, I was wondering how we might go about, for future considerations, how does one go about becoming a city street so that we can think about maybe not only our needs now, but for future, so that this will come up again at some point in time, no doubt. And when new people do new construction, they go about similar things. So we're not a private development. I want to make sure people understood that. And so if there's something we need to do or can do, that maybe we could be apprised of that.
Yeah, Jerry?
Linda, I think if we did go to turn it into a city street, first off, we'd have to be a ton of money, on our behalf, but I don't think you'd want that. We would have to make it much wider. We'd have to have a cul-de-sac large enough to turn around an emergency vehicle. You would lose. And right now, I know you have to figure out how to divide up and fix your private driveway. It's a one-time painful deal. But if you wanted to have it a city street all the time, plus it's private, you guys can gate your community if you want to. If we open it up, we'd have to take a lot of your yards, a lot of that hillside, and then anybody can go up there. So it would be really tough on you.
And the other thing thank you for, that's all valid considerations. Speaking of the precedent situation, there's a drive that to outward look is similar, the Evergreen Lane situation, about the same number of homes. And I'm just wondering if there is an existing precedent there. It physically, to the outside world, looks similar. So just so that we have everything out there for consideration before a final decision would be made, I appreciate that.
Is that road you were talking, is that a city road, the one you just talked about?
It's at the crest of, like if you're going to go out to Valley View, Oaks, And just before you get to Birch Boulevard, there's a street lower than Birch Boulevard that goes, or a lane, or whatever you want to call it there. And they have things going on there like having garbage trucks come, and it gets a lot more wear and tear from what the outside from we see. We don't have garbage trucks come up our street. We try, it's a very low maintenance where we live, and we like it that way. That's cool. But it just, again, from the state of precedence, they've, fair is fair, and they've received some improvements on their street. So even if a decision wasn't made tonight, if maybe that could be thought about, it's a request.
I think a decision was made tonight on what we had tonight, but that doesn't mean that sometime in the future, if something changes, who knows, I don't know. But as far as this proposal, not tonight, it was voted down.
Sure. We'll talk to George. How's that?
Keith?
We're not, right now, we don't maintain any any private streets or any private drives. I'm not sure in Evergreen, I think that's a public, but if we're on there maintaining it, then it's a public. We don't maintain any private.
And I didn't mean, not to take any more time here, to make the insinuation it was private. It's just physically a similar layout, and maybe we can talk about how we can, again, for the future, make things a little bit more equitable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Item 3.10 is the Relay for Life license agreement for August 10th through 11th.
Move to approve the license agreement.
moved by Debbie, is there a second?
Second.
Second by George, questions or comments? All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the Relay for Life license agreement. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Item 3.11 is the request for off-site gambling for the Eagles Club for August 5th.
Move to approve that request.
Moved by George, second by Michelle. Questions?
I presume that's for their picnic?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Note that the date wasn't on the,
Yeah, it's August 5th.
thank you.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the request by the Eagles. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, carried.
Under new business, item 5.1 is the appointment of election judges for the 2012 elections.
Move to approve the slate of election judges?
Moved by George, second by Debbie. Questions or comments? There's a list there.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, which is to approve the appointment of the election judges. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried.
Item 5.2 is the 2012-13 City of Winona Professionals Employee Association contract.
Move to approve.
Moved by Jerry, is there a second by Al? Questions? All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the 2012-13 City of Winona Professional Employees Association contract. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Item 5.3 is the 2012-2013 Fire Captains contract.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Jerry, second by Michelle. Questions? All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the fire captain's contract. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, carried.
And item 5.4 is the 2012-13 firefighters contract.
Move to approve the contract.
Moved by Debbie,
Second.
second by Michelle. Questions? All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the firefighters contract. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed.
Item 5.5 is a request from the Southeastern Minnesota Multi-County HRA.
I'll move to approve that request.
Moved by Michelle. Is there a question, second?
Second.
Okay, second by Debbie. Questions?
Yeah, what are we all doing here now? What does this cost us any money, or?
Mayor and council, this does not cost us, the city, any money. It just allows this program to take place within the city of Winona. They need to work out a joint powers agreement between SEMCRA and the Winona HRA for this program to take place. And then it allows, if there's funding and it's allocated to this area, then SEMCRA will administer that program. If there's no cost to us.
We have to put no dollars up, so.
Jerry?
Yeah, talk to Judy on this, because sometimes on these packages, there is some admin money that goes along with it. And Judy and I talked today, and other than maybe answering a question or a phone call, our staff will do nothing. It's their staff that does everything. So that's really allowing them to do work inside of our borders.
Why don't we do it? Why don't our HRA do it?
I don't think our HRA is really set up to undertake this program. They have the staff, SEMCRA has the staff to do the program, and they're doing it in all the surrounding areas.
I believe they did it in the past, but the way this is working now, if you collaborate and you have a larger geographical area, it seems to work better to get the funding up in the cities.
Yeah, they did do that in the past, and then they gave it to this SEMCRA. And then within the city we did some too and passed it on to them, or how did it all work on our end?
Yes, there was a joint powers agreement between the Winona HRA and SEMCRA to operate the program in the past.
Okay, so.
Yes.
Okay. Questions? We do have a motion. All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the request from the Southeastern Minnesota Multi-County HRA. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Item 7.1 is council concerns.
Let's start with Al tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Sympathy as well to the family of John Edstrom in our community. I also attended the Cornerstone and Commemoration Centennial launch at St. Mary's University on June 23rd, and what an exciting time for that university, and you look for more events coming from Terrace Heights in the coming year on that centennial. It should be an exciting time for the university. And I wish everyone a happy and safe and cool 4th of July on Wednesday. That's all.
Jerry?
Sympathy, obviously, to the Edstrom family, and happy 4th of July, everybody. And I didn't see any block closings for 4th of July parties in the East End.
Not this year.
Not this year, okay.
Michelle?
Happy 4th.
Debbie?
Yes, deepest sympathy to Fran Edstrom and family on John's passing. He contributed a lot to the community, and he will be missed. Just some information passed by to staff, if it's something we'd be aware of and we find useful, I'm not sure. That St. Paul has what they're called a Cultural Star program. They also have one called a Neighborhood Star program. And the acronym stands for Sales Tax Revitalization Program, and it's part of their Department of Planning and Economic Development. And in essence, it's a designated targeted area, particularly in the downtown, that they call a cultural district. And that cultural district fund is to promote cultural vitality and economic growth. It strengthens, of course, arts and culture community sector, and also supporting downtown as well. So that might be something, I don't know if you can glean anything from it or what that program is about. So it sounded very, very interesting. And I know we have a lot of strong support for, of course, economic development in our arts and culture base as well. Lastly, got the mailing from our Park Rec Department. And it's this year designated, we try to do, rejuvenate a park every year. And this year's will be the East Rec Center, and they're going to update their playground. And I think it's a wonderful idea that staff has come up with in Park Rec called a concept called place making. So what they're going to do is more of a natural playscape idea. They're going to start mid-July. And they said it's also tying in with our Playful City USA Designation Award. This is their second year that they're committing themselves to that. And if they need help, so if you're interested in helping with any of the installation, planting, or watering of this new park for the East Rec, give them a call. As they say, many hands make light work. And everyone have a safe and cool 4th of July.
George?
Okay, good news. Highway 43 traffic improvements, road improvements began today. Doing sightings out there and some getting ready for traffic control. As I understand from speaking with the engineer, that physical construction, the digging should begin next week, Monday, but they're setting the table for all that to happen, and that was improvement that's been needed for a long time, and it's on its way. Also, to my granddaughter April, I wish her well as she is recovering from teeth surgery today. So she is healing up, very painful, just resting. And happy birthday to Rosie, who her birthday is today, and her party will be on the 14th. So another East End recognition. And again, to the Edstrom family, there's nothing that I can say about the life of John Edstrom. It hasn't been said already, just that he gave us a lot. He gave us a lot to read. He gave us his opinion. He stuck by his opinion, and he was one hell of a publisher and a good family man. Good for the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Under the consent agenda, there are 3 items. Approval of the minutes from June 18th, accept a proposal for the video projector in the council chambers, a claim against the city by Forrest Zittel. I would note on the minutes, I did have one correction, and that was that under White's comments, we were to research, it's the city of Minneapolis report, not the city of St. Paul. Wrong city. So we will research the correct city's report.
Okay, sounds good. Is there a motion?
Move to approve?
Moved by Debbie. Is there a second? Second by Michelle. All in favor of the consent, which is approval of minutes as corrected there. The proposal for the video projector and one claim. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carried.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Jerry, second by Al. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, carried. Thank you. Very good.
Okay.
It was good. It went really well. It was a long way.